This is your City Council Roundup, a recap of what's happening at City Hall with John Ongaro. The views expressed in this program are solely of those of the host and not necessarily those of the radio station or its partners.
I can tell you already, Danny, you're not going to like today's video because your face is in the sun and you're very bright.
Well, thank you.
And you're just a ray of sunshine this morning.
Thank you.
But we could use one this morning.
All
right. Last night, right on time and no technical errors. A welcome change last night. Everyone was in attendance. Only Councillor Chung was missing. 12 members in the chambers, and that number matters. Stand by for why. First, a little bit of a last-minute change last night that surprised everyone. The James Whalen Tug, the subject of much chatter over the last couple of weeks, was announced to be on the agenda, and it was removed from the agenda instantly last night. Just to recap, it was a completely neglected piece of history that was strapped to a wall in the Cam River, wasn't cared for, and it sank. That's the Coles notes. Then $800,000 was spent to lift it twice, because once they lifted it the first time, it fell back in the water, and then sail it down the river to its resting place at the Patterson Dock by James Street, where it's been rotting further for over a year. So last night was supposed to be a discussion on whether or not to sink it, scrap it, or take it apart and keep some pieces. It would kind of be like having an antique car that you don't want anymore, but you keep the hubcap and a steering wheel just for a conversation piece on your basement wall. That's after years of history. But the much anticipated debate was pulled from the agenda last night. Why? Well, I've got some ideas. The main one is the hard work that our Transportation Museum has been doing to build up the Pool 6 and the area around the Alexander Henry. You know the group, the ones that should have had the tug in the first place, the ones that should have had the rotting via rail display in the first place. It's never opened in 20 years. The paint's falling off, but it sits there to rot. The neglected pieces that council gives the Transportation Museum, but nothing but grief is what they get in return from this council and councils previous. They're the experts, council. You are not. Give them the boat and pay to get it to them, period. Which is what you should have done in the first place years ago. I suspect that the pause last night has something to do with the museum wanting to salvage the wreck of the James Whalen. And hopefully admin will suggest that the best option is to move the boat to the marina in Pool 6, put it on land for display, and let the experts at the Transportation Museum do their work and not spend $540,000 scrapping it. Stay tuned to what happens next with that. Also last night, the Corporate Services Licensing and Enforcement Division has decided that, hey, we're going to spend some money on the Victoriaville and Waterfront parkade structures, upgrades to both facilities to the tune of $1.2 million. Don't worry, though. It's within the city's budget. The structures will be completed and fixed in the coming year. $1.2 million passed and carried last night. Also last night, outdoor rinks keep coming back. The gift that just keeps on giving. Administration was directed to review the outdoor rink program, to review potential changes and report back before next week. Well, they did last night with a draft proposal for the underutilized rinks for council's review. Not sure how many of the councilors actually read it because there wasn't much discussion on it, but it basically shows the number of people using rinks and which ones are now noticed for closure, or at least how they will get to that point of closure. It was very well explained by administration. They did a ton of work on this. It's a long process, but it seems like the new policy will work. We need to stop spending money on things that aren't being utilized and put our efforts into things that are. It looks like that's the direction, at least from administration. What council does is up to them. The new policy, the draft policy, was approved last night. Finally, some thoughts on nuclear waste.
No.
I better take a drink.
Yeah, this will be very interesting. This is a very deep, very intense topic, I should say.
There's a lot of passionate people inside and out, and there is a lot of passionate people that are fighting this plan to move nuclear waste deep inside the Canadian Shield near Ignace. You'll remember that a couple of weeks ago, the group against this waste coming through Thunder Bay brought some scary explanations to the table that shook up a few people. The fear of this waste coming through our city and that we should try to stop it. Well, what we also learned is that we can't stop it. It's not our business. Our city council has no business even coming up with a mandate on this. We don't own the highway, and all we can do is put up a sign to point which direction the trucks should go. See where I'm going with this? But I did learn something last night. Actually, I learned an awful lot by paying attention. Hopefully some of the councillors did, but judging by how they voted, they weren't. And the grandstanding by a few councillors fell on deaf ears for me because it seemed like a couple in the room last night were way enjoying the applause from the gallery far too much. But the Nuclear Waste Management Organization did an exceptional job of explaining the facts and pointing out that council may have not got all the facts in the last deputation a couple of weeks ago. I learned a lot, and we should be, including the councillors, in learning some of these facts as well, which were well pointed out last night. Some of the facts include that the waste from these reactors to Ignace will not be coming here for another 20 years. That's the early 2040s. Hopefully, I'm retired by then. It will be 650 shipments a year. That's 2 to 3 trucks per day. And by the way, it works out to 0.5% of truck volume on the Trans-Canada Highway. 0.5%. But it's carrying radiation. Well, it turns out you are exposed to less radiation from this truck traffic than eating a banana. It's true. And less radiation than what you get going to the dentist. If you were to stand on the highway every day for an entire year to watch the trucks go by, it would still be less than going to the dentist. But that's a fact that council isn't talking about. But here's another fun fact that you probably didn't know. There are 1 million radioactive shipments in Canada every year. How many of those come through Thunder Bay? Do the math. It's a lot. But yet some councillors want to make sure there's not more. We already have a lot. We can't have more. We've done fine with it up to now. But here's the problem, councillors. It's not your mandate, and you have no control over it. There is a ton of waste coming through here every day, all kinds of hazardous material, safely and going directly through our city that you don't know about. Now that you do know something about it, all of a sudden now it's an issue? But here's the biggest fact from last night. Our council is now questioning, are you ready? They're questioning the International Atomic Energy Agency and the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. You would think that these two organizations might know a thing or two about nuclear waste, more so than a city councillor in Thunder Bay. They know more than you, and I'm pretty sure safety is their prime job. You know, International Atomic Energy Agency. Kind of a big deal. But our city council are experts at this. So the request to vote on a proximity report came out last night in the city council meeting for discussion. This is simply put, these are the two things that were voted on last night. Okay? It turns out that the first thing is that we want to look at options for hazardous waste to come through Thunder Bay and review that with the government. Well, that makes perfect sense. It's starting to smell a little like the designated truck route, isn't it? That portion was approved by this city council. Then the debate and the pontification began. Oh, the horror of what could happen. On and on and on. Did I mention that these safety protocols are done by the International Atomic Energy Agency? They actually explained last night, the group that did the deputation, exceptionally well, that did you know that in nuclear reactors in Canada, there are camera systems that are linked directly to Vienna? You know, Vienna. They know a couple of things, and if a camera glitches, the phone rings. I'm thinking that they're not letting people put radioactive waste in the back of a pickup truck with a green tarp from Canadian Tire and driving it to Ignace. But yet our council questions these things. The second part of the resolution was the interesting one. It says this, that a letter be drafted on behalf of the city council urging the Nuclear Waste Management Organization to pursue the option of managing the used nuclear waste closer to the reactor stations where the waste has been generated and is currently stored, and thereby avoiding the transportation of nuclear waste through Thunder Bay. It's already coming through Thunder Bay. But yet this council thought it would be a good idea to now send a letter to show we don't want it here. Well, didn't that open a can of worms? Many councillors went on to explain that, sending this message is probably bad for business. It probably shows other corporations that we're going to shut the door on anything coming through town. It probably shows that this opportunity for literally 100 years of economic development and more, the doubling of Ignace in size, many, many other pieces that are positive to this, our city council wants it stopped, even though we have no business stopping it. It's not our highway. So part 2 went to a vote, and it lost on a tie. That means that we're not sending a letter on behalf of the city to urge the Nuclear Waste Management Organization to find another route, because it's super easy to build a highway from Nipigon to Atikokan because, we just don't want those trucks coming through here. They completely missed that this is happening every day, and it has for years. But let me tell you what this does expose. It exposes exactly who's in charge of the designated truck route. And it exposes that the designated truck route is coming back sooner rather than later, even though it has been voted down for 11 straight years. It's coming back because one councillor in particular doesn't think that any of this waste should be going down 102. But more importantly, there's too many trucks going down 102. I've been clear on my stance on the designated truck route. It's completely selfish. Because what we're saying is don't put any trucks on Dawson Road. Instead, send them through Kekabeka, because this city council wants nuclear waste to go in front of the Kekabeka school that is 25 feet from the highway instead of past the houses on Dawson Road. It's completely selfish. Let me explain. When the designated truck route comes back in front of council, it is going to be chaos. You'll need to watch that. You'll need to see who cares about the community and who doesn't. We're going to put 750 trucks a day through Kekabeka because a handful of people on 102 don't want them there. And gosh, the traffic in front of Walmart on Dawson Road is really atrocious at times, isn't it? Come on. The designated truck route has died so many times I've lost count. It's coming back. In the meantime, nuclear waste is still going through Thunder Bay, along with hazardous waste by rail and by road every single day, and you know nothing about it because it's safe. The meeting was done last night at 8:34.
Wow, that was a great one, John. Thank you for your insight. Appreciate it. And as always, a reminder, you'll be able to find this on our website, 999thebay.ca, or you can text the word council to 807-344-8229 for a direct link to today's council roundup. Before we wrap up, because I know we're a bit pressed for time, I wanted to ask you 2 quick questions. One thing, if we could go back to the James Whalen, which
sure. I know your favorite topic. Yeah.
Well, it was interesting, and it's something that maybe a lot of people didn't put together because I didn't even think about it. When we talked about that $800,000 price to lift it, raise it, and bring it to where it is now.
Yeah.
There's the other part about taking it apart, which you said was estimated at over $500,000. Was that right?
Well, it was 530 something thousand.
So I forgot, or that's another aspect to this that I didn't know.
Well,
about.
Here's the other part that nobody's talking about. When they lifted it out of the river, why didn't we bring it to the Transportation Museum then? It would have cost the same amount.
Right, because now it has, yeah.
Because by now, it'd be sitting on the land at Pool 6, probably painted, probably cared for, and not sitting and rotting for a year. Mm-hmm. These are the kinds of things that slip through the cracks when it comes to the infrastructure deficit and things that we have that we don't take care of. Yeah. This is just another one of those things. It could have already been at Pool 6. Yeah. The Via Rail train could have already been at Pool 6. The buses should have been there a long time ago. Let the Lakehead Transportation Museum, if I get that right, Transportation Museum of Thunder Bay.
Thunder Bay.
I want to get it right. Let them do their work. These people are passionate. They care about the history of our community. Yeah. Let them have the boat, but the boat should have been there after it sunk, not 2 years later.
All right. And one more question. Has nothing to do with City Council, but now that I have you here, tonight's an important night, the U.S. presidential debate, Kamala Harris, Donald Trump. Will you be here tomorrow with the debate round?
Do you want to do a debate roundup tomorrow?
I don't know. Maybe we can, because I'm hoping to watch that tonight.
Those that know me know that I am a huge fan of American politics, only on a presidential level. I don't get me into the Senate. I picked Kamala Harris years ago when she did the questioning at the Supreme Court hearings.
I remember that.
Go back to watch her. And at that point, I thought to myself, that woman needs to be the president because she's so smooth. Tonight is going to be fascinating.
I know.
Especially because their mics are being muted.
Yes.
So, hypothetically, because I know I'll get hate mail if I go any deeper than this, hypothetically, if one person, tries to talk too much and not form proper sentences and interrupts, that would make for a Instead, it's going to be, here's 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Put
figure
some
it out.
sentences together and let's see what happens. It is a fascinating time, but it is an enormously important time for our friends south of the border.
All right. A pen, a pad of paper, and a bottle of water is all they get. All right. Thanks,
Can
John.
you imagine how awkward it would be during the commercial breaks when they just have to sit in the room together and not say anything to each other?
Will they greet each other with a handshake?
They've never met.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
All right.